simple bypass. You've used these Teflon arteries before. Yeah.
You'd be better off with an organic graft, wouldn't you?
What do you think, Harry? Is it ethical?
It's called the Cauldron of the Moon. See, the Indians believed the moon bumped into the earth here, made this huge imprint. It's called the cauldron.
What were the Indians on, Coyote?
See no evil.
Hear no evil.
Speak no evil.
God damn it, Harry, we started a goddamn fire. Something we should have done yesterday. There's three of us. We could fight them.
Jesus Christ, Mitzi, fight who? We don't know if it's one man or 10.
It's possible we're all paying for something one of us is responsible for. It's not outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, but it's one hell of an assumption.
He's behind me, starting a fire! Harry! He's going to burn me!
Come on! Come on! Come on!
Hi, this is Tony O'Dell from Chopping Mall, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 64, I believe. And this time we are going back into the woods for rituals, which is Joseph's pick. And, well, actually, I shall introduce you to our fellow intrepid campers. Joseph, it's your pick today. How are you doing?
I'm good, Justin. And you know what's great about you English? Octopussy. I must have seen that movie twice.
It's another one I don't get, Joseph. What's that from, apart from... Is it another Simpsons reference?
Yes. I have nothing this morning. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
Okay, right. And Erik, are you naked this time?
I am indeed.
Are you?
I am. And you know what, Justin? I feel like I've just given birth to my own baby girl, except she's like a big giant girl who smokes and says shit a lot.
Okay. Oh, God, I'm not getting any of these references.
But I have a better question for all of you. Are all of you without shoes?
Yes, I haven't got shoes on.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm barefoot.
Just like the people in rituals.
Yes, but hopefully
Do you have your feet wrapped in rags?
No, I do not.
No.
I probably should, just to be in kind of with the film today.
Yes, and Erik.
Well, I'm at one with nature, so.
Well, exactly. I mean,
you are a bear.
Erik was outed himself last time as doing the podcast naked, which may be very welcome for lots of people, but maybe some people might be a little bit put off. Erik, you're just sitting there in all your splendor, aren't you? You're not.
I am, because I have to close the window for noise reduction reasons, and it's really, really hot, and I can't turn on the fan, or else we'll get noise. So I just sit in the nude instead.
Okay, well, so if you do want this to be a video podcast, do let us know, because I'm sure we can arrange that.
I have a webcam now. I want to see Erik's. I want to see Erik's fur. No, not your junk. Your fur.
All right.
Okay. Yes.
Some of it is still growing back after the operation. They shaved my tummy.
Not your junk.
Not my junk. No.
No. Okay. Right. Well, with that visual image still lingering, we're covering rituals today. Say Joseph's pick, kind of protest slasher from the mid sort of later 70s, and we're also going to do top 3 ditzes, which kind of follows on from our top 3 bitches of from a couple of episodes ago.
And that's why I did my little.
Your little Romeo and Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Michelle is my favorite ditz, but she's not in a horror film, so.
Right.
I watched the shoehorn.
Did you give Ramon a hand job?
Yeah. To get the car, I did.
Oh, yeah.
You are Columbus and I'm America. Discover me, Ramon. Just discover me. Like, the stuff he gives her to say is ridiculous.
Mm. Oh, so many reasons to love the movie.
Yes.
I like the cowboy. He's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do we know who? Because somebody on the it was on the forums, and I meant to look it up, and I forgot to look it up. Who actually suggested ditzes? Who was it?
I don't remember who suggested it.
Let me take a look at that. I will
Yeah,
I will give you the answer right this second,
because we would like to thank them for that. So I think we've got some fun sound clips coming up in a little bit. But before we do that,
would be Farmer Vincent.
Well, Farmer Vincent,
Farmer
thank
Vincent.
you. Yes.
Yeah.
So we
there's no kind of critters like your critters, you know.
Yeah.
I did get that reference.
Something like that.
Yes. Okay. Well, it's only been basically ahead of time. I might as well say that because we've got the holidays coming up, and as the British and Irish have more holidays than we work. So myself I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks, and Eric's get away for a couple of weeks. So we're going to have a slightly reduced programming over the next couple of months, aren't we? But we are still going to be doing stuff, and we'll be telling you about a very special show, which will be coming up in about 3 weeks' time after this goes out. But we're actually recording this a week ahead of time before we release it. So it's only been a week since we recorded last. So I haven't watched a massive amount, but I've got one film to talk about. How about you, Eric? You watched anything?
Yeah, I saw a few. I watched Don't Go to Sleep, which is a 1982 made-for-TV movie.
Yeah.
Starring Dennis Weaver, Valerie Harper, and Oliver Robbins, who was the kid in Poltergeist, the young boy. It's a story of a family whose eldest daughter dies in a car accident, and they move to a plush country mansion with their grandmother in tow to make a clean start. But the youngest daughter, Mary, then starts acting very weird and soon starts having visions of her dead sister, who is prompting her to do very nasty things. And I have to say, for a made-for-TV movie, it does go in some unexpectedly grim directions. I mean, you don't get any sex, gore, or lavish special effects, but there's plenty of atmosphere, and the kids are terrific in it. Like the young daughter Mary is wonderfully evil to her brother, but acts super innocent in front of her parents. It's a great little TV movie, because TV movies have great fondness for them a lot of the time, but this one in particular I did enjoy, and it reminds me a bit of The Conjuring, which I went to see yesterday morning as well. Have you seen Don't Go to Sleep, anyone?
Yes. I have. I'm in a minority here, but I thought Dennis Weaver was really terrible in this film.
See, really? I loved everything about Don't Go to Sleep.
Oh, I liked the film.
I especially love the double whammy ending.
Yeah, the film is good.
Yeah, you think it's going one direction, and it goes in a different direction at the very end.
For some reason, I just thought Dennis Weaver was really... I think he kind of overacted a little bit, because he was so good in Duel. He just didn't live up to that, I suppose. But it's a good movie. It's a good movie.
I saw the film when it first came out, actually, on TV back in the early 80s, because it was 82, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it, must have been about 13 or 14 when it came out, and I remember it being really scary. And I was actually quite impressed, actually, watching it again over the years, that it still retains some of that scariness, doesn't it? Some of the scenes. And the image that was always burnt onto my psyche was the image of the pizza cutter being rolled up the staircase.
Yes, yeah, that's great.
Up the handrail of the staircase. I thought that was great.
Because my impression of TV movies is that usually all the evil is undone at the end and it's happy ever after. But this film is far from it.
Yes, very much so.
One of the last to raise, wasn't it, of TV horror movies, because they'd obviously been such a big thing in America in the 70s, and especially the early 70s, and by 1982 I kind of got the impression that they kind of were dying off. There was a dying art, wasn't it, by that point? So it's pretty strong kind of swan song.
I also watched Hatchet 3. Again, not a series I'm particularly fond of. The film, like Jason Goes to Hell or Freddy's Dead, has a convoluted setup where only the person who killed Victor Crowley originally can access the ashes of his dead father and lay the curse to rest, or some such contrived nonsense. There's a nice touch of humour at the start, actually, where Daniel Harris is explaining the events of Part 2 to a police officer, and in the cell next to her is the writer-director Adam Green, and the police officer scoffs at her story, saying, "That's so contrived, who would believe any of that?" And he gives a disgusted look to the camera, which I thought was kind of fun. And I mean, it is very much in keeping with the first two installments. I suppose if you like them, then you'll lap this up. For me, they're passable. They're one-time watches for me. They're incredible special effects, and this one has Caroline Williams, is that her name? Who was so brilliant in Stepfather 2 and Texas Chainsaw 2. She was one of the best things in that, and she's back in this, so it's nice to see her back. And it's certainly far better than anything in the Laid to Rest series or other sort of direct-to-DVD slashers. And series that are out there at the moment. So yeah, Hatchet 3, if you like the first two, I would recommend it. Other people, yeah, worth a rent, I suppose. And I also had my, I suppose, second taste of Asylum. This is my first Asylum mockbuster I saw, which was Paranormal Entity, which was on the Sci-Fi Channel, which of course apes the Paranormal Activity series. And it starts out quite well, I was surprised. I mean, if somebody said to you this was Paranormal Activity 5, you'd easily be fooled because it copies it quite well. It follows a mother and her two adult children and documents sort of this evil presence that's tormenting them. But the main problem with the film is that it takes the slow burn of the Paranormal Activity series a bit too far, to the extent that the film never gets out of first gear, and my attention span became severely tested for the last half hour. But I mean, in terms of look, feel, and acting, it was certainly far better than I was expecting. And I mean, it wasn't awful, but it was just a bit dull. Was my impression. Has anyone seen any of the Paranormal Entity films? I know there's a 2 and 3 as well.
I saw the first one. Like you, I thought it was actually fairly, decent for an Asylum film, but that's about as high praise as you can give an Asylum film.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've not seen any of them. I kind of, I don't know. It's although I quite like the Paranormal Activity films, I just thought that was one step too far.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't realise. I actually thought it'd be really over the top rather than kind of more subtle.
No, it's kind of under the top. Yeah,
that's fun,
it lacks the explosive finales of the Paranormal Activity series. I found anyway.
I thought there'd be some kind of like bad CGI ghosts.
No, you get none of that, unfortunately. I was hoping for that as well. So, speaking of ghosts, I also saw, as I said, The Conjuring. I went to the cinema yesterday morning to see it. I thought it was quite good. I don't think it was as good as Insidious. I think it was on a par. What was the name of the Ethan Hawke film where he finds the Super 8 movies in the attic?
Sinister.
I thought it was as good as Sinister, which is high praise, I think, because Sinister was good. And again, this was good. It was a bit too long for my liking, but it has some great scares in it, most of which you can see in the trailer, which was probably a problem I had with it. I think the trailer makes it look like it's just going to be wall-to-wall scares, whereas the film, everything you see in the trailer is all the scary bits, squashed into 2 minutes. But it's certainly above average and well worth seeing.
I'm going to go and see it on Tuesday night, so I haven't seen it yet.
I've not seen it either. I love Insidious. I didn't care much for Sinister.
I didn't really like Sinister either.
No, I didn't either.
But you've seen The Conjuring, haven't you?
I love The Conjuring. Yeah.
No, I still need to see it.
All the critics are pointing out that it's very derivative, which is good. There's no surprises in the film at all. But that's not a problem. Do you know what? It's set in 1972 or 1971, and it really captures an early 70s atmosphere to the extent where you could almost fool somebody into thinking it's a film from the 70s, a haunted house film from the era of Amityville or whatever. Because it captures that era really well without having to resort to gaudy wallpaper and people going around in flares saying groovy.
Yeah. Well, it's made loads of money, isn't it? It's just about to tip over to 100 million. And I'm delighted
it has, because we need more. Like it is a good film. It's just I don't think it was as good as Insidious. I don't think it did the subtle scares that Insidious had in the first half of its film as well.
See, no, I think James Wan is an interesting director. Unlike Rob Zombie, who keeps doing the same thing over and over, James Wan, I think he keeps getting better with each film. If I don't know if anyone would agree, but I think he's reined himself in. He hasn't gone too gaudy or over the top or anything of that nature.
Well, I think it's really. I mean, I love kind of, I love over-the-top slasher movies, but I love sort of kind of subtle spook fests as well. So these kind of films, it's nice to see them. Although, there's not. I mean, it's very difficult to do a haunted house film or a haunting film without kind of employing a lot of the cliches. But I think there's also probably a loads of stuff to be mined, isn't there, from the Warrens? They're the kind of the real life. Couple who didn't they investigate the Amityville house as well?
I'm not sure. I know it's based on a true story.
They
in
did.
Inverted commas. Yeah.
So there's like a lot of room for a sequel or probably even a series of films based on them alone.
I'd imagine so. Yeah, it's actually one of the great things about The Conjuring. It has the creepiest doll I think I've ever seen in a film. Really, really.
Although it makes you wonder from the get-go, why would anybody even buy that doll to begin with?
I know.
Is it creepier than the Voodoo Massacre doll?
Well, no, nothing is really.
No,
it's not. And it wouldn't be as creepy as the shoe rack either.
What about the grandmother?
No, Definitely not as creepy.
What's her name?
I'm just Hazel Tankersley.
Yeah, or the I'm gonna go get my gun.
Interestingly, I'm just looking at IMDb, going on a different tangent here. James Wan's next project is as director of Fast and Furious 7.
That's very bizarre, isn't it?
That cannot be real.
That's what it says on IMDb. It's in pre-production for a 2014 release.
Wow.
Well, The Conjuring 2's down for a 2015 release, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah. I'm not surprised it's getting a sequel. I mean, it is really good. I do recommend you go see it. I think the scares were better handled in Insidious, although this one is good. There's, some great stuff in there. But I think that what they did was they gave it all away with the trailer.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Insidious, the next chapter, or whatever they're calling it, because I think the good thing about Insidious was he didn't have the budget to do really big, flashy special effects, and so had to keep it fairly low-key. But obviously, I imagine the budget would be hugely inflated for the sequel, so... so hopefully that he can keep it as kind of relatively subtle and kind of low-key kind of thrills and spills, because, I'm sure with the Poltergeist remake it's going to be fully over the top, isn't it?
Yeah, I have visions of sort of the Haunting remake in my head for that. So,
Ooh, that'd be fun.
What, the...
Did you like the Haunting remake?
I like the Haunting remake.
I hated that with a passion.
I did too. I did not like it. I like the House on Haunted Hill remake.
Well,
that was good.
I mean, I will say it's nowhere near the caliber of the original Haunting. Don't get me wrong. I just kind of thought it was cheesy fun.
Well, that was cheesy.
The worst cinema experience I ever had was the Haunting, I think.
I think
just kids running up and down the aisle being obnoxious. Anyway, sorry, Justin.
No, it's just if I didn't know and love the original Haunting, then the remake I probably would agree with you. It's kind of cheesy, good time, but it just seemed to it did everything opposite to what made the original work. But that's what you get if you get. Obviously, Jan de Bont was the director, and of course, what's her name? The Lily Taylor. She was in The Conjuring as well, wasn't she?
She is, yeah.
And she's in The Haunting. So it seems like The Conjuring kind of makes up for her appearing in The Haunting, perhaps.
Yeah, and she always, like in certain angles, she always reminds me of Jamie Lee Curtis, Lily Taylor.
Speaking of Jamie Lee Curtis, did you hear about her car accident?
Yeah.
Well,
she's okay.
She was saved by Jodie Foster, of all people, I believe.
Yeah.
I know. That
Wow,
was quite bizarre,
crazy.
isn't it?
Yeah.
She wasn't driving, was she? She was.
No, she was the passenger. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's okay. I was worried.
That's good.
Speaking of which, I was Googling something on my iPhone, and you know the way it gives you sort of recent searches, search suggestions. Like, and the top one was Jamie Lee Curtis, because I was looking up news about her accident. But like 3 down was one called Cocksucking Cowboys. Now, I did not look up Cocksucking Cowboys on my iPhone. I don't know where they got that idea from.
I can't imagine.
No, it was bizarre. It's like the first 2 entries were things I'd looked up recently, like Jamie Lee Curtis and maybe Justin Cresswell's bottom. But then the bottom one was Cocksucking Cowboys.
Well, maybe when you fell asleep naked, maybe your cock dialed it.
Maybe it did. Maybe it did.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Wow. We went
anyway,
there.
that's it. That's it for me and recently seen.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Eric. Nathan, how about you?
Well, the only scary movie that I watched recently would be the full director's cut version of Boarding House, where the rent won't kill you, but something else will. Yes, I am. Because it features a lot more, scandalous activity. As a matter of fact, there is a whole 5-minute scene where the girls sit around the pool debating if they're going to try cocaine or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we should make a lobby card out of that.
And Jim, the house mother, Jim, he gets into a big fist fight by the pool that we didn't see in the theatrical version.
Who's he fist?
It's the nice one, by the way, matron. It's the detective guy that shows up that gets electrocuted.
Okay, yeah.
That he fights him by the pool. Let's see
Does the film make any more sense in this longer version?
Oh no, maybe even it's a little bit more nonsensical.
That's what I thought it would. Yeah.
But I will say that I listened back to the Boarding House episode that we did, and one of the questions we had is, what does Jim do that he can afford this house? Well, it turns out he actually inherited it, and they cut that out too. So, I guess they, we kind of learn how he got the house. and
I think we should go back and redo a boarding house episode.
Me too.
On the director's cut.
On the director's cut.
Yeah.
It needs to be like a boarding house episode part 2.
That's a tumbleweed, I hear, is it?
Yes, I need to get a. Maybe I'll remember. I need to get a tumbleweed sound effect, don't I? Yes.
That type of sound.
That type of sound. But I shall lay one underneath this, perhaps, like I did with the cheesy music for the quiz.
Crickets, maybe.
Or crickets, yes, tumbleweed or crickets. Well, I mean, it's
or crickets flushing the toilet because you tried to look up a cat once and that's what you got. So
I know.
Maybe you'll get crickets flushing the toilet.
Well, maybe I'd like to maybe get some sound clips of the crazy rhubarb lady.
Oh, she was brilliant.
Oh yes.
Kiss my ass, bitch.
Yeah.
What are you, fucking lazy?
But of course, now we're recording this a week early. That's going to be so passé, isn't it, by next week when this goes out?
There'll be something new out then.
Yeah. God, we were watching, because we were around some friends, sorry, just a little aside, but watching on YouTube, it's clips of Russian car crashes.
As you do, yeah.
As you do. Well, someone said, "Oh, you've got to watch this," and they've basically, in Russia, they all seem to have these webcams on their dashboards, and apparently it's to stop, because there's so many accidents there that they film it so they don't get sued.
Yeah.
And it's just, you have to watch it. I mean, it's unbelievable. Everyone must be really drunk the whole time. I don't think there's any fatal accidents on there, but there's just kind of cars spinning out of control, crashing into each other, lorries overturning, bits, people driving along with no wheels on. I mean, it's just absolutely mental. And you can see why the death rates on Russian roads must be really, really high. But so yeah, that's what it was, basically like watching a real Final Destination movie, like that car crash in part 2. It was just like endless shots of things like that happening. But anyway, that's just as an aside. But yes, boarding house. So
there's also many scenes of the gardener scaring the girls more. If any of you remember the scene where he has the chainsaw and he walks up on the girl in the hot tub.
Yes.
And he just walks right up to her with a chainsaw. Well, there's like several more scenes of him doing things like that. Like he walks up to a girl with a sharp implement and she'll open her eyes and he's standing like just a foot away from her and she'll run away screaming. I don't know how many times this gardener has to do that.
It's amazing, yeah. And this was this put together by the director and his wife?
Yeah, they put it together, I believe. For anybody that's a fan of the movie like myself, I would definitely watch the unrated version. But for anybody that's never seen Boarding House, I would stick with the theatrical one. Okay,
that is probably sage advice, I imagine. So
there's also, just so Joseph will know, there's 2 music videos on there from Hot RCA property. Like they actually filmed like music videos for a couple of her songs that they feature in the film.
What, from the time?
I must see this. I cannot wait. Please bring it over to my
favorite. My favorite part in the songs is there's one part in the song where she says, "Come on, nail your heart to the ground." And in the video, she's standing over Jim and holding a gun on him and making him like hammer like a fake bloody heart onto the cement.
Gosh.
So they go very literal with that.
Yes.
And do they have any input, as in, like, is there new commentary or?
Yeah, there's a new commentary for the director's cut and a brand new set of interviews, too.
Have you listened to them?
I haven't listened to the commentary yet, but I listened to the interviews, and it's kind of the same that we've already heard.
Right, okay.
If you watch the Code Red one.
They don't really mention us talking about their film.
Actually, well, no, they don't. And actually, I think they kind of diss the Code Red version or the Code Red edition of their film. I think they call it schlocky, I believe.
Really? I can't imagine why.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the only thing you've seen, Nathan?
Yeah, the only other thing I watched was comedies. So
okay, right. Well, thank you. How about you, Joseph?
Well, the only thing I've watched this week, horror-wise, I watched the ABCs of Death. I had heard so many bad things about it that I just had to see it, and everything everyone says about it is pretty much true. This was terrible. I mean, this is such a great idea for an anthology, but it's so juvenile and distasteful, and they just go out of their way just to be as, pretentiously art house as they can be. It had one segment that I liked, and the rest, it was all I could do to stay awake. I mean, it's well over 2 hours long, way too long, for an anthology. I mean, I can understand because you have 26 short films to get through, but still, they could easily have trimmed, so much here and there. But it's just a complete waste of time and a complete waste of a great premise. And like I said, I liked one segment in the film, and I know they're making a sequel, so I'm kind of hoping that they'll, take the actual idea and, and make it, I guess more horror, because this is like a lot of just bizarre kind of, some of it was just kind of bizarre comedy and just, I don't know, weird things that I just did not care for. But yeah, it was just terrible.
Yeah, parts of it were very pretentious, I thought. And I thought the best part was actually the one that the guy did, the stop motion one about the toilet, which was one a competition winner did to get into the thing, and his ended up turning out to be the most entertaining, I thought.
Well, I thought that was. I liked C is for Cycle. The guy finds himself in. He goes to the little shrubs outside. I also kind of liked the one directed by Angela Bettis with the spider.
Yeah, I thought it was passable.
Yeah, it was passable, but the rest, the toilet one, like Erik said, I guess it was okay. It had good stop motion animation. I thought it was kind of interesting for a one-time watch, but the rest were just so dull and so pretentious. And this is not a horror film. I mean, it's barely a horror film in any spot. It's just such a waste of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I have.
Why don't you tell us what you really think?
I just did.
Mean, what is up with the letter F? Like, that one was the worst. That might have been the worst one for me.
It was pretty bad, but I kind of laughed at how bizarre it was. It was just.
Which one was that?
F is for fart.
Oh, yeah.
Where the girl's smelling the yellow farts, and then she gets sucked up into her professor's ass, and they live happily ever after.
It's a Japanese one, isn't it?
Yeah. So you can kind of expect that out of the Japanese.
Yeah. Bizarre. Yeah.
Well, all right. For those that have seen it, what do you think was the worst segment? And that's a really tough choice.
My worst would probably be the one with Adam Wingard and the other guy. I can never remember his name. Where they go out to kill the duck, and then they end up shooting each other because they were just trying to make a joke, and it just failed so miserably. I also hated the one with the prostitute where she kills the kitten.
Yeah, I hated that one as well.
That pissed me off, and the dogfight one pissed me off as well.
Mm.
Well, I'm still in no hurry to see it, so I think
don't be.
Don't be.
No.
It's such a great idea, though. I mean, how could you ruin an idea like that?
I think one of the biggest problems is they had such a short amount of time to film these films. Maybe they should have done it in segments, like here's like A through F, and here's and did it like part 1, 2, and 3, and so on and so forth, and give them a little bit longer than just a couple of minutes to film a segment for that movie.
Or if they're going to film like a 2 or 3 minute short, make it more horror related, not some pretentious. Oh, look how arty I am.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh, I think was the most pretentious of the lot. I think.
I don't remember which one that was.
Yeah.
The bubbles and.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I couldn't even follow that one. I just didn't care.
Right.
Erik, do you shoot bubbles when you have an orgasm?
It depends how many arrows I've eaten.
Okay.
Right. On that bombshell or bumshell, we will move on. Actually, I'll quickly say I've not really seen much in the way of horror. The most horrific, but horror like was it's not even a horror film. Is Westworld. The 1973 Yul Brynner, James Brolin, Richard Benjamin sci-fi movie by Richard Crichton, which is it Crichton or Crichton? I don't know.
Crichton.
Michael Crichton.
Yeah. And I really love this movie. I've always loved it, and I haven't seen it for quite a few years now, and we noticed it was on streaming, so we kind of watched it, and It's just a great sort of premise. It's and if you don't know the premise, I mean, I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but essentially, it's these three worlds where you've got Roman world, West world, which is like Western, old style Western, and medieval world, where they're populated by very realistic robots. And you basically go there to indulge all your passions and your vices and stuff, and you can have gunfights in Westworld. And the mantra is where nothing can go wrong. And of course, it's fair to say that it obviously does go wrong, and the robots turn on the humans, and you never really find out why. There's kind of talk of it being like a disease amongst the robots. But the reason I sort of bring it up is the last half an hour is this kind of, and it's something I've kind of I remember seeing before, is the Yul Brynner chasing one of the characters. He plays like a gunslinger, and he just basically, it's in his robotic DNA. He just keeps chasing, and he just chased one of the characters through Westworld and the other worlds, and he gets set on fire and he gets attacked, but he just keeps on coming, and he's very much like I just kind of wondered if it was, John Carpenter kind of borrowed that idea of like the unstoppable boogeyman.
I think he's gone on record as saying that Westworld was an influence.
Has he? Right. Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just because it's got that whole thing. You just, whenever you think he's dead or he's finally been stopped, he'll get up again and keep coming, and it's very much like Michael Myers, that kind of unstoppable boogeyman. I mean, previous to this, it's kind of like most of the times, like psychos were either captured like Norman Bates in Psycho, or they would be shot with one bullet and they'd be dead or whatever. But with this, it's that real kind of, it just keeps on coming, and it's something that was kind of built on in lots of subsequent films. So yeah, that was I presume you've all seen that at some point.
Yes. Great movie.
Have you seen
Very good movie. I love it.
The sequel's good as well, I think.
Yeah, Future World.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we discussed Westworld. I think it was in your top 3 at one point on the show.
Might well have been, actually. Yeah. I mean, I need to watch Future World again. I haven't seen it for ages. I can't even remember what happens in that. I know it's got Peter Fonda.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Mm-hmm. And Blythe Danner and stuff. But anyway, that is our top 3. Not top 3. The top 3 is coming up. That is what recently watched, and I say it's only been a week, so we haven't watched that much. But talking of messing up, we are now going on to our top 3 ditses. So
before we do this, I just want to say some of my picks might be questionable, because I thought this would be an easy, pick, but this was actually kind of difficult for me.
Okay, all right. Well,
I just want to say that this does tie in nicely to Rituals. Do you know why?
Why?
Because one of the lead characters in Rituals is called Mitzi, and our top 3 are all ditzy.
Wow.
Clever.
That's very nice.
You've done that nicely, Erik.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I hope that's your hands you're clapping together.
Yes.
No, that was Nathan, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay. Right, well, talking of Nathan, let's... Oh, God, here we go. Oh, quick.
No.
Here's Nathan's number 3.
Unleashed a monster. No.
I'm sure everything's going to be okay, honey. Your mother was a wonderful lady. And if there's a heaven, she's got a box seat. Maybe we ought to go, unless you want to stay. What is it?
My mother's?
It will be all right, Kiki. It will be all right. At least I think it will be all right. After all, you've got me now. I mean, if that's any comfort to you, I'm not your mother, and I never could be. But I can try.
Can I call you Mom?
Sure.
Right, Nathan, what was that? And why did you pick it?
That was Kiki and Mike from Doom Asylum. And I chose it strictly because she wants to call her boyfriend Mom because he wants to take the place of her mother. One of my favorite scenes or parts of that clip too is their 3 friends are waiting on them in the car while she's like stopped at the side of her mother's death from a car accident. And during this scene, one of them goes, "Come on, I'm hungry," and the other one goes, "Yeah, come on, she died 10 years ago." Like get
Sharing
over
friends.
it. Yeah, get over it. Let's just go get food. But no, I mean, she's the heroine, and she is that ditzy that she wants to call her boyfriend mom. I mean, he's a ditz too, though. I mean, there's even a scene later on where he's getting into a fight and he's hanging from a ledge, and she's looking up and she goes, "Isn't that mom hanging from a ledge up there?" And one of my favorite lines also is when they know that there's a killer after them, and they're in the chapel, and she's praying to God, and she says, "Dear God, if you get me out of this alive, I'll give you anything you want: money, sex, or a charge card at Bloomies."
I bet God, if there was a God, would jump at the chance to have sex. A big head, 80s ditz, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
But anyway, she's a very, very big ditz, and I won't say too much about the film because obviously it is something that I will pick eventually.
I thought as much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We try and get an interview with, Kristen Davis, is that her name? From Sex and
I'm
the City?
sure that she'll talk about this film.
Yeah.
I'm positive of that.
She has the most amazing glasses in it.
Yes, she does.
Right. Well, thank you, Nathan. Just before I forget, just a very short aside. Something we watched the other day was a documentary called, and it was full of ditzes. It was called Confessions of an Alien Abductee. And I urge you to try and track it down if you haven't seen it. It was on a Channel 4 documentary, and basically it was interviews of people who think they've been abducted, but it was all these people that obviously had mental health problems. And there was a woman called Chantel who had the biggest hair I've ever seen in my life, and aliens would come down and hide her cigarettes. And it was just full of things like that. They seemed to come when they were eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, seemed to be a trigger for the abductions. It was just.
What's it called?
Wait. What's the name of this again? I need to write it down.
It's Confessions of Alien Abductees, I think.
Okay.
And there was a man on it who had, and he was a politician, and he says that he's an alien mother who comes down. He also has a relationship with a cat sex god, and he has children with her.
So do I.
Well, of course. Aww. But anyway, it's just full of kind of very ditzy people. But Chantel was great because she's got this huge hair. If you just Google...
is she blonde?
She's blonde, yeah.
This hair is... She looks like an alien.
I know. Have you seen the photo of her hair? If you just Google Chantel alien abductee, that hair is something, isn't it?
I think she's an alien disguise.
I mean, you could fit a spaceship, the mothership, onto that hair.
Yeah, the mothership could go in that giant top hair of hers.
It's just
oh my God! It's like kind of Tina Turner gone wrong or something.
Yeah. You've got to see it in action, though.
Wow.
So let me get this straight.
I'm not seeing this on the Baby Jesus anywhere, so I don't know how I'm going to see this.
She goes on a drunken binge.
Yeah.
She goes on a drunken binge, and then the next morning, aliens have hidden her cigarettes.
Yes.
What a coincidence.
Encounter 1970.
She got abducted outside the local spa.
As you do.
She says she's worried. Sometimes she goes to the shops and they come for her.
It's like Marge Simpson hair.
But it is like Marge Simpson hair.
It's so bizarre. There was they've got this whole group for people who have been abducted, and they set it up as a support group. And this woman Chantel basically says, "I don't want it to happen anymore. I've had enough. I've had enough." And so this guy sends her this crystal, and she opens it up with a battery attached to it. And she said, "It looks like a dildo." And it's this kind of weird crystal dildo thing is supposed to keep aliens away from her, and it doesn't work, she says. But it's definitely, if you get to see it, I would recommend it. So, but anyway, it was a very big aside. So, yes. So apologies for that. Joseph, here's your number one.
That is one fucking ugly man that goes there.
That's one fucking ugly man, Mama.
Would you shut your trap? You know, you ain't so pretty yourself, you know.
I ain't so pretty myself, I know.
Miss Piggy. Was that Miss Piggy?
Yeah.
Sounds like her.
Actually, I'm picking Junior, although his mother could be somewhat of a ditz. I picked Junior because, who says it has to be a girl? And like I said before, I had a real tough time coming up with my choices. But I don't know. I like Junior, and I like his mother. He's the male ditz. He's not all there in the head, and plus he gets a very fitting death scene that finally shuts him up. So there you go.
A very good choice. And
Yes.
as you say, you can get male ditzes as well as female ditzes, as you can see. So I think it's a very good choice. And I bet you still can't, because can't wait till we review part 5.
Oh, I that is like I'm so excited to get through 3 and 4. Not that I do love 3 and 4, but I am just waiting with bated breath for part 5.
All right. Anything else to say on your number 1?
Chop them and kill them. Do you hear me?
Fair enough. Excellent. Well, thank you, Joseph. Erik, here's your number 1. Number 3, sorry. 3.
Sorry, Buster, we're closed.
That's all right. I just want to take out order. I would like Lana to go with nothing on.
Lana. I don't know about that. I'll have to ask her.
Hey, Lana, you want Billy? Sure?
She says she wants you too, but you have to wait a few minutes till she's done inside. I'm going to party.
It's showtime! I don't know if he loves me, but I think he does. Girl, you are so hot. Sorry. Billy, what are you doing? It's cold.
This is cute. I like this. A whole lot.
You're gonna waste a lot of money this way, smarty. Oh, well, that just means more for me.
Okay, Erik.
Okay, that's, of course, Lana, played by Rebecca Wood-Sharkey in Friday the 13th, Part 5, which,
Yay.
Following the theme here. Why is she ditz? Well, if you haven't seen the film, the bulk of the dialogue we've just heard, she's spoken to herself. She constantly has imaginary conversations with herself. She makes up that wonderful tuneless song, I don't know if he loves me, but I think he does. And, it's showtime!
Girl, you are so hot.
Yeah. It's a shame she didn't go on to really that much more in her filmography, but her on-screen presence in Friday the 13th Part 5 really shines, even though she's only there for about 3 minutes or so. But what a spectacular 3 minutes it is, and I'm sure when we get to Joseph's beloved Part 5 episode, we'll talk about her a bit more.
It's going to be so good.
So good. Yes. Excellent. I don't know if there's any more Friday the 13th 5 coming up. I don't know. Maybe there is. We shall see.
I don't know.
No. Okay.
Probably not in your top 3 because you hate that film, Justin.
Well, we shall see. All will be revealed in the next, I don't know, year or so.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you, Erik. Here's my number 3.
I'm going to give up cigarettes today, and I'm going to stop drinking, and I'm not going to take any more of those tranquilizers. Anyway, they say it's bad for you to take them if you drink. That should make Peter happy.
Yes, that was me earlier this morning.
That's I was about to say, it sounds like Justin.
And I've already broken every single promise to Peter. That was Dagmar Lassander from Photos of Forbidden Photos of a Woman Above Suspicion, the 1970s giallo. And she plays a woman called Minnow who finds herself basically surrounded by big sharks throughout this film. And she has more inner dialogue than Jan Brady does throughout the whole of both Brady Bunch movies. And she's just really ditzy throughout it. And she's just basically, there's a scene in it where I think she goes to try and persuade the person who's blackmailing her not to blackmail her, ends up having sex with them, and then gets blackmailed some more. So she's just kind of like very, very ditzy, and she's just very vacant throughout the whole thing, with lots of she's just used as this kind of character to almost push ahead the dialogue. Because I think I read back on my review of the film, and she says things like there's a compression chamber, and in her head she's just looking slightly quizzical, and then you can hear her in the dialogue going, a compression chamber, like that. And so she's just very ditzy. So but I thought we had to have a little bit of giallo madness, and because I would have picked Marilyn from what are those strange drops of blood doing on Jennifer's body, because obviously she's fantastic Ditz in that, but we've utilised her charms many times. So
yeah, it's not like us to recycle things at all.
No, obviously want to keep things fresh. So, and talking of
forget about that little statement you just said when it comes to my number one, please.
Okay, all right. Well, I was going to say, talking of recycling things, here's a special version of the cat flush in the toilet we have used before.
He's a bastard! Flushing the toilet, he's a bastard! Flushing the toilet, he's a cat. Flushing the toilet, he's a cat. Flushing the toilet, he's a bastard!
How do we know she is alive?
Well, if we're comparing notes, I'm single, and to the best of my knowledge, no children.
My turn. Don't laugh, all right? I've been married, and then single, and then married. I've got a divorce. I've had an annulment, and now I'm having lots of fun.
Okay, Nathan, who was that?
Oh, that was Cindy from Class Reunion Massacre, who, unfortunately, she's been doomed to die by the Redeemer because she's a fun-loving party girl, but I think she'd just be fun to hang out with. I'm very upset that he thinks that she deserves to die, because I thought she was a very fun, semi-ditzy character, and, she obviously doesn't have very long relationships, it seems like.
Yes. No, good one. I haven't seen that film for ages, and I need to watch it again at some point. But yeah, it seems it's very unfair, wasn't it, of the killer to pick her just because she likes a party.
Yeah, I think so.
A good pick. Anything else you'd like to say about that?
Well, the Redeemer does have it in for a lot of people for very dubious reasons, so I wouldn't take it too personally, Nathan.
Yeah, this is true. You can't do anything. I mean, have you ever sat down and read the Bible? Technically, we're not allowed to go to the bathroom, so you could get killed for any reason.
Exactly. So, no, it was a good number two. Joseph, what? Yeah, go to the bathroom.
He was just going on about going to the bathroom, and you said that was a good number two.
I know. God, it just flows. It just flows like
the number two flows.
Yeah. Anyway, quickly.
Some emoji.
Quickly.
Flushing the toilet, he's a bastard! Flushing the toilet, he's a cat. Flushing the toilet, he's a cat. Flushing the toilet, he's a bastard!
How do we know she is alive?
Should I read both parts?
No, I'll read Rick.
I love you. Make love to me, Rick.
No, I gotta go back.
I need you now. Right, Rick. I want you, Rick.
What about your uncle? He's upstairs dying. Don't you care?
I don't care about my uncles, Rick. Sorry.
Keep going.
Shouldn't I be moving around or something?
No, just stay there.
Of course I care about my dying uncle. Make love to me, Rick. I need you.
Oh, the problem is the scene. Overwritten. Just cut it to, make love to me, Rick, I need help.
Well, how will the audience know about my dying uncle?
Don't worry, they'll know who's dying the moment they hear you.
Okay, Joseph, what's your number two?
Well, that was BJ from Island of Blood, and she's the heroine, and she's just really dumb. There's one point in the film where she first arrives on the island, and it's she says it's weird being on an island, and one of the guys goes, she thinks this is weird, she ought to try Manhattan, and she's just like, huh? she's constantly just kind of out of her own head. She ends up sleeping around trying to get parts in films, and she has that scene where she just doesn't understand that the director is just kind of basically talking down to her, and yet she is the central hero of the piece. She's just very dumb.
Well, that's quite a brave decision, really, isn't it? Or she was sleeping with the director or something. It was one or other. Well, seeing as her name was BJ.
Yes. It fits. It's very fitting.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, which of course we have featured Island of Blood on the podcast, haven't we?
Yes, and just as an aside, when we were talking about Island of Blood a long time ago, I was looking up people for interviews, and I tried to find, I think her name is Barry Suber, who plays BJ. I tried to find her, and all I found was a Facebook page, that I'm assuming a fan made, because I don't know if this is really her, but apparently she had all kinds of like sex tips on there and things she's going to be doing later. Like she thinks it's perfectly acceptable to have sex in garbage cans in the streets and things of that nature. And it was just made up like a fan page, but it said like official Barry Suber page or something, and I was like, okay, this can't be her. But look her up on Facebook. It may still be there. It may not. I don't know, but it was very funny.
She could have been the Amanda Burns of slasher movies, couldn't she?
Yeah.
So, okay. Right. Well, thank you very much for that. Erik, do you want a little bit of a bastard?
I do, please.
He's a bastard! Flushing the toilet, he's a bastard! Flushing the toilet, he's a bastard! Flushing the toilet, he's a cat! Flushing the toilet, he's a bastard!
How do we know she is alive?
You know, it's totally insane. We have 3 new cheers to learn in the morning. The game is in the afternoon. I have to get my hair done at 5, and the dance is at 8. I'll be totally wiped out.
I don't think you have enough to do tomorrow.
Totally.
Oh, Lori, I totally have nothing to wear tonight. I was kind of hoping that you'd lend me that silk blouse that you got on your birthday.
I haven't even worn it yet.
I know, but I promise I won't spill anything on it or tear it or rip it or do any of those things.
It's in my closet.
I'll get it.
Promise me you won't rip it.
I totally promise.
I totally don't believe you.
Totally.
Okay, Erik.
Well, of course, that's Linda, played by PJ Soles in the original Halloween. And she's possibly the queen of slasher ditches to many people, but she
Ditches?
Did I say ditches?
You said ditches. I think it's a ditz and a bitch all rolled into one.
Well, there's nothing bitchy about Linda. She's a ditz, flushing a toilet. But she only makes my number 2 because I found an even bigger ditz for my number 1, and you have to wait to find out what that is, although I am recycling. I love the inanity of that sequence filmed for the TV version of Halloween, where she just pops over to Laurie's house to borrow a blouse. It's just so... It screams like we're a filler scene just to make up time. But I mean, I love stuff like that. I mean, it's odd that she's going to Laurie to borrow a blouse, because Laurie is supposed to be this sort of librarian character who dresses in, very drab clothes. So what's the cheerleader like Linda doing wanting to borrow a blouse? And then, of course, Annie rings up looking to borrow the blouse as well. It's a very exciting scene. It should have been a lobby card, I think. What I love also about Linda is that, considering it's 1978, her hair is huge. I mean, I can't imagine how backcomb-tastic it would have been if Halloween had been made in 1985 instead of 1978. But her hair is pretty darn big for the late 70s. But,
Can we just say that I have met her. She is incredible in person. She's just so nice.
She is.
She comes across as really likable in Halloween. I have to say.
She is just bubbly. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
Did you know she was married to Dennis Quaid when she shot Halloween?
Yes, I did. And he was supposed to play Bob, wasn't he?
Yeah. Did we talk about that on the Halloween episode?
We probably did, yeah. He was supposed to play Bob originally, but then pulled out for some reason. And then
I didn't know that until like a few days ago. I probably did know it and I forgot about it, so I don't know.
And Dennis Quaid was in the best Jaws movie.
Yeah. She has a good ditz.
She is a good ditz.
Very good ditz. Yes, very good choice, Erik. And we're all waiting with bated breath to see what your number 1 is.
Yes.
As now you've built it up.
I have built it up.
You have. Okay. Right. Well, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a cat, and then we'll be moving on to number 1s very shortly.
He's a bastard! Flushing the toilet, he's a bastard! Flushing the toilet, he's a cat! Flushing the toilet, he's a cat! Flushing the toilet, he's a bastard!
How do we know she is alive?
Damn it! Who are you gonna call, Daddy? Shut up, you nasty bitch! I would call the police and they'd send someone. Who? The cops! Duh! The police are gonna send the cops. They're the same thing. No, they're not. There's a difference. Nuh-uh. Yaha!
Whoa, ladies, I'll get us some stuff. No need to be...
Yes, that was probably my favourite thing from Hatchet movies, apart from the gore and Victor Crowley, was the dueling kind of topless models, Misty and Jenna, and that was Misty, Mercedes McNabb, who I thought was they were easily my favourite things in that movie, and I would have loved to have seen them or seen Misty as a final girl, but I can't actually remember what happens to her in the movie. Does she survive?
Who, Mercedes McNabb? No, she's. We never actually see her death, but we see her body parts being thrown at somebody later on.
Right. Okay.
See, I always thought it would be interesting if they were the final girls, or if the old couple were the final people.
But
they would have made the Hatchet film a lot better.
Yeah, I mean that's why I really loved the fun, the feel of the first Hatchet, which was missing from the sequel. And I haven't seen. You talked about Part 3, Eric. Is that kind of fun feel back to Part 3, or is it?
No.
Part 3 is just like Part 2, in my opinion.
It's very like Part 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, what I've always said is that Hatchet 3 basically just does the same thing, and the series is pretty much just ran its course in my opinion.
Except that it invents stupid rules like we need somebody, the person who killed Victor Crowley originally, to access his father's ashes to
right.
Shut up and just kill people.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because I thought the first one really kind of captured that kind of the fun element of the early 80s slasher, or something that it just had that kind of cheesiness, but it was slightly tongue-in-cheek, but worked as a straight-ahead slasher as well, which, again, I thought was missing from the sequel, and it sounds like it's missing from Part 3. But they were, Misty and Jenna were my favourite bits of the first Hatchet movie, and I wish they would get their own franchise, basically.
Spin-off,
So, okay, well, that's all the number 2s out of the way. So now, Nathan, here's your number 1.
Even if I was with Brent and wanted to take my own sweet time, tonight is competition night.
I think we'd all be better off if she'd think more about the team and less about getting honey on her muffin.
Honey on her muffin? Honey on her muffin? Well, yeah.
Oh, that's one of my favorite horror movie characters of all time, Bonnie from Cheerleader Camp, who is so sweet and so nice, but, as one character points out at one point in the movie, the lights are on, but the bulbs are dim with Bonnie. There's also a scene towards the beginning where, they're doing roll call, and one of the characters, or the head of the cheerleader camp, is roll calling people, and one of them's being kind of funny, and she says, "A simple present will suffice." Bonnie Reed, and Bonnie goes, "A simple present." She's very, a very likable character, but she's just not that bright.
A very good choice, Nathan. And I'm looking forward to it. It'd be great. Cheerleader Camp would be a great one to do.
Yes, it will.
At some point, wouldn't it? Because how many of the cast went on to do porn? Was it just Terry Weigel?
I think just her went on to do porn. Really.
Lucinda Dickey definitely didn't. I don't like the accusations you're making against her.
I'm not saying anything.
I think Leif Garrett might watch a lot of porn.
I'm not suggesting anything about Lucinda Dickey being spit roasted. So let's just move on, shall we, to draw a discreet veil over your indiscretion.
A black veil.
A black veil, yes.
Justin,
like what you would wear on Saturday night.
Your little sexual innuendo is pretty humorous, but I suggested the podcast to a friend of mine, and she listened to our first episode, and she about died laughing when you said someone was bum raped.
That's not even innuendo.
I know. I was like, well, you just haven't heard that. You haven't heard the worst yet.
Yeah.
Oh God, all the best. The best. Well, let's see. Okay, well, let's...
like when he said that Christian Bale can suck his cock.
Did I say that?
You did. You meant kiss my ass, but you said suck my cock.
Well, there you go. Well, yes. Let's draw another veil over that. There's going to be lots of veils being drawn over things.
Your favourite type of headwear.
Yes, I'm wearing one as I type.
I prefer a sombrero.
Well, but you're naked.
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
Naked sombrero Sunday.
Yes. Here we go. Joseph, here's your number 1.
You bastards! Why didn't somebody wait for me? I could have been raped or killed out there.
By what, Gailey? A horny chipmunk? There's nothing out there that could hurt you. It's Greg here you gotta watch out for. I hear it comes down to his knees.
A lot you know. There was something out there, and it followed me here.
Hey, Gail, did you get lost?
Screw you. There was something out there. There really was.
Sure, Gail. Sure.
Okay, Joseph, what was that?
That was Gail from The Prey, and I've never been a huge fan of The Prey. I do love the ending, but I love the Gail character because they're going camping in the woods, and she spends more time, putting on makeup and trying to pretty herself up. And she has this vacant stare through the whole film, well, up until, her death scene. And she's also involved. I mean, this has nothing to do with her, ditzy personality because she's already been dead at this point. But she's also involved in that great scene where the park ranger discovers her body and they just keep cutting back and forth between him and the vultures and her dead body. Yeah. So it's like a trifecta of her like putting on makeup, being all vacant, and then she has that great, post-mortem scene. So that she deserved the number one spot in my opinion.
A very good choice it was too, I think.
And she's so flat, acting wise. She's just the perfect ditz in my opinion.
I did make contact with her once about getting to interview her, and she was quite like her on-screen presence.
Libel.
That's not a nice thing to say. Yeah.
Well, no, I don't mean in a horrible way. Well, I suppose how else can it be meant? But it was that I wrote to her through Facebook, and she kind of got back to me and was like really like, well, what's it for? And she was just kind of really asking lots of questions, and nothing ever came of it. So, but if you're listening, we love you, Gail.
We do.
You're our number one. You're my number one. So
exactly.
There.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm.
So, well, thank you, Joseph. And Erik, you're number one.
Yes.
Someday, we are going to be in movies and rock videos and everything. Because my song is going to be a hit.
Here, here. I want a silver caddy with a Landau top. Oh, I know what Courtney's getting for her birthday.
Oh, man,
a boyfriend. I want a sugar daddy with a candy shop.
Sheila, be careful. Who knows who's out there?
I want a lot of things that a money can't buy.
Oh, Sheila, your brother is such a pervert.
But what I want most is a pie in the sky.
Boy, I felt so bad this morning. I wanted to go home. I can totally relate. I've wanted to go home myself this whole entire day. I mean, my face is turning into one big pimple.
What I want most is a pie in the sky.
Christ, where have you been? I just went to the store to get some more Oxy-10. And, well, I met this outrageous guy. He was such a babe. Did I do something wrong?
Okay. Well, that is the wonderful Heidi Kozak in Slumber Party Massacre 2, playing the character of Sally Burns, which I only just realised when I was watching it back is, I suppose, a nod to Texas Chainsaw Massacre because Marilyn Burns plays the character of Sally. So I'm guessing that's where that came from. And also, the two of the boys in the film look uncannily like Colin Farrell and Ian even Ziering, of course, recently in Sharknado. I'm assuming they're using pseudonyms in this, though, because it doesn't show up on IMDb. But, yeah, Sally, played by Heidi Kozak, surely has to be the ditziest character ever. Her vocal intonations are just pure genius, as you heard in those clips. She has that wonderful ditzy Valley Girl accent. She just describes the guy she met at the drugstore as an awesome dude, and he's a total babe. And she also goes around wearing denim hot pants all the time, and she has huge hair that she's combed over to one side. Absolutely fantastic. Of course, she was also a kind of a ditz in Friday the 13th Part 7 as well, but it's in Slumber Party Massacre 2 that she really gets onto the A-list of ditzydom with Justin.
Yes, this is going to be my number 3 pick, but Erik had beaten me to the punch.
Sorry.
The scene I was going to pick, now I love Slumber Party Massacre 2. It's probably my favorite of the series, and I know a lot of people probably frown upon that, but I think this movie is so much fun. The scene I was going to pick is where the girl's upstairs crying, and she goes to see what's wrong, and this girl's obviously in some kind of turmoil, and she's like, oh, I know what you mean. I have this zit, and it just keeps getting worse. Her friend's sitting there crying, and all she can think about is her pimple.
Yeah, that was in the clip there. It was Courtney Bates, again, probably a nod to Psycho, played by Crystal Bernard, is having visions of the rockabilly psycho killer with the drill bit on the end of his guitar. Yeah. And she's there going, oh, I know what you mean. I've got this big zit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I had to go with Junior for mine, but I'm glad you picked her at least.
Yeah. She's absolutely, and I mean, I review, as one of my very first reviews for Hysteria Lives, I reviewed Slumber Party Massacre 2, and I kind of dissed it. But rewatching it, I think I would give it a much kinder review because it is a lot of fun.
I love it. I love that film.
You know what? I love the first hour in particular, where it's just ditzy girls dancing around and you know, because they're all in the band playing their, you know, 80s style of rock music. I just love all that stuff.
It's so much fun, yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll save that for an episode because I'm sure.
Yeah, so I gave it 2 out of 5, I think, on Hysteria list, but I'd certainly upgrade that to maybe 3.5 now.
Well, thank you, Erik, and thank you for taking the time to do that clip, that mega mix. So excellent.
Yes.
And I'm sure Nathan.
It was a joy actually to put together because there was a smorgasbord of ditzy dialogue in it for me to choose from.
And Nathan, I bet you're a big fan of that film, aren't you?
I love all the movies in the Slumber Party Massacre series. We should do a triple feature one episode.
Maybe.
That would go on for a while?
Yes.
Well, we'll condense it as much as possible.
Okay, right. Well,
no
thank
top
you, Erik.
3, no quizzes, just Slumber
No
Party.
recently seen.
Yeah.
No intros.
Yeah.
No.
Just play the movies back to back.
Yeah. Although I think we should actually dedicate an episode to each one. There'd be more than enough material, wouldn't there?
I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we've already heard a little bit of her, but this is my ultimate slasher movie ditz.
How do we know she is alive?
Morgan, it's your turn. We realize this takes a lot of thinking, Morgan.
Okay. A toast to... Ooh. How do we know she is alive? Let her... Give me something stronger.
She's all right.
How do we know she is alive?
And
I just can't hear that enough. It's just such a great line.
Yeah, the immortal Morgan from House on Sorority Row, which is a film we've covered lots, and we have actually utilised that sound clip a lot of times before. But she has to be my favourite slasher movie ditz, because my favourite is when you listen to the commentary with the Catherine McNeil and the other woman whose name escapes me, with the director, and when they get to that line, they all burst out laughing, don't they? Yeah. And you get the impression that lovely Jodie Draghi, who played Morgan, probably was quite similar in real life. I mean, maybe she was a scientist or I don't know, some great mind, but I think it's just the best bad reading of a line, and how they kept a straight face when she was doing that during that scene, I just don't know. But it's also, because when they make these films, I mean, some films they have like one shot at a whole thing, whereas this House on Sorority Row is actually a kind of very beautifully made film. It's cut together very well, with great care and craft. It's very well directed, and so you get the impression that it must have, if something didn't go quite right, they probably did reshoot a few times, but obviously with limitations of a small budget. But just thinking, if that line was allowed to get through as it was, how bad must have been the other times they tried that. So, and I just love it, and I love her demise when she gets, she finds the music box with the pop-up clown inside, and she's smiling, and then she gets the if you see the movie, you see what happens to her. But yes. A raised little glass to Morgan from House on Sorority Row and all the other ditzes today.
Yes.
I was also going to pick her, but Justin beat me to the punch. I actually didn't think about her when I was like compiling, and I was like, "Ooh, what about Morgan?" And then I checked our messages, and he'd claimed her. So
yes.
At least someone did. Yeah, at least someone did.
Well, I think you had to. I mean, it's just that all-time. I don't know. It's just every time it makes my heart skip a beat when I hear that line. And I know I'm not alone.
Yes.
We're not alone.
Not alone. So that was our top 3 ditzes. So if you think there's any that we missed out, let us know, and we'll have a little bit later. We'll let you know how to get in contact with the show. So shall we go on to our feature presentation?
Yes, please, Mummy.
Okay, here we go. Here's the trailer for Rituals.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise.
This animal's only been dead for a couple of hours.
Look, Harry, somebody's playing a very sick game with us, and I want to know who, and I want to know why.
If you go down in the woods today, you better go in disguise.
April's dead, Harry.
Was it a man?
Or everything.
Mitzi. No one's gonna help us. Why? Why is this happening to us?
Somebody has stolen that boots!
Why would anyone steal 5 pairs of boots?
Get off it, DJ.
Look! 2 months ago, I sent everyone Xerox sheets of what I would supply and what you were to bring. You were to bring extra shoes and your toothbrushes. I supplied everything else.
5 doctors on their annual ritual, just trying to have a good time. But this is the year they should have stayed at home.
That thing's never gonna let us out of here!
Rituals isn't a picnic. You're in for a big surprise.
Hal Holbrook leads a group of doctors who decide to hike deep into a remote area of the northern woods for a rugged, back-to-nature vacation. Once they reach their chosen terrain, they are on their own with only their wits as a means for survival. Within a short time, a chain of horrifying events begins, leading the men, one by one, to find themselves stalked like animals by an unknown terror. The vacation turns into a nightmare as the men turn suddenly desperate, clinging tenuously to the last vestiges of civilized behavior. And that was from the old Embassy VHS cover. And Rituals is an obvious take on the Deliverance formula, though not as action or anal rape oriented as its inspiration.
Boo. Bum rape.
This is more of a proto-slasher with civilized, though questionably ethical men, actually a group of respected doctors and physicians facing an unknown terror in the forest and succumbing to their baser primal survival instincts. They spend much of the movie debating one another on morality and past indiscretions, that the plot twist near the end where we learn, and big spoiler alert, that their tormentor is a surgical mistake almost seems too convenient. But I think it's rather a nice punchline to what is essentially a tale of men finding their true selves amidst a series of chaotic and deadly circumstances. I highly recommend the Code Red DVD release that was put out a few years back. They've cleaned the picture up to the best of their abilities, and you finally get to see a movie that kind of had a reputation for, shoddy releases. You finally get to see it in its kind of full vibrancy. The forest is captured here kind of with a weight that feels as if a tree could fall onto the production at any minute and put these people out of their misery. It's kind of a vast and swampy, kind of like a wasteland of terror. I guess if you asked most people, they'd more than likely choose Deliverance over Rituals, but I always felt the opposite. I think Deliverance, while it's a great film in its own right, it always seemed like an extravagant action film with 1 or 2 memorable set pieces. And I think Rituals kind of begins, quieter, and, it kind of slowly puts the characters through the ringer. They kind of take responsibility for each emotional outpour, whereas the sequence of, say, Ned Beatty squealing like a pig always seemed like a scene done for mere shock value. And Rituals, it's more character-driven, I'd say. And, I think the acting here is really incredible from everyone around, especially Hal Holbrook as Harry. He's kind of the de facto leader of the group, whose reasons for being in the woods to begin with, kind of easily mirror his, easily mirror his decision to take a final stand against the killer at the end of the film. Lawrence Dane is equally as good as the slimier Mitzi, and I think the supporting cast offer, a lot of interesting takes on their characters as well. I have a lot more to say about it, but for now, I'll turn it over to Justin.
Right. Well, thank you. I really like Rituals. It's one of those kind of rare movies that has it kind of imbued with a kind of sense of dread. It's very atypical, but of course it's like a proto slasher in some ways. Like you say, it's modelled on Deliverance, but it has all the. I really like the fact. I mean, if you said today making a horror movie with 5 middle-aged men as the protagonists, it just wouldn't happen, would it? I mean, there isn't that audience there for that kind of film. But Lawrence Dane on the Code Red DVD, which again I'd recommend very much, on the commentary keeps on saying he's got a slightly schizophrenic approach to the film. He's sort of saying on one hand it's a horror movie, on the other hand it wasn't a horror movie. It was a drama with horrific sort of touches to it. But no, I really like it. It's got that, like you say, it's interesting because it's got that dual threat, isn't it? It's got the killer who's lurking, and you get all the point of view shots and all the things we've come to know and love as part of the subgenre. But also, although it's kind of it's caused by the killer who kind of steals their shoes and things like that. Actually, the biggest threat to them is the wilderness itself, isn't it? Which is almost like an accomplice to the killer throughout the movie. I mean, the wilderness is kind of, I suppose, where the killer does all sorts of things, like sets up with like the shots with the bees, and also the traps and stuff like that. It's the killer's the main threat, but the land itself is completely unforgiving, and just being that isolated, you really do get the feeling they are out in the middle of nowhere. Whereas with the Friday the 13th movies, it kind of almost feels like you know that in fact, if they just turned around, there'd be the lights of Los Angeles behind them somewhere. Whereas this, it really does feel like it is the middle of nowhere, and it's uniformly well acted. I also really like the fact that it had a kind of a gay character in it that they made no fuss about at all. It was just a completely given thing within the film.
Kind of a throwaway,
Yeah,
he says it once, and then they don't really spend too much time over it. It's almost glossed over. It's just kind of a trait, I guess.
And he's portrayed as being gay and alcoholic, which reminded me of a certain someone.
What, yourself?
What?
Were you looking in a mirror?
No, I was looking at a picture of the author of Teenage Wasteland, actually.
Oh, I don't know who that could be, but yes. Anyway, so I think I'll have another drink while I'm listening to Erik character assassinate me and then pretend to be bullied.
Well, I really like rituals as well, and I mean, I love slasher movies that are set in the woods. And this film has a very unique, eerie atmosphere, I think. It's sometimes quite ethereal and almost supernatural, and it reminded me a bit of the same atmosphere or the same vibe I get from Picnic at Hanging Rock, where it feels like there's some kind of otherworldly force at work, even though it's plainly not. And even in the scratchy, worn-out print that Code Red have, which is really good. I mean, scratches don't bother me at all. I love the fact that large chunks of it take place in daylight, and that the scenery is fairly spectacular. And I think daylight is underused in horror, I feel. And I mean, I'm not one of these believers that says that horror has to take place exclusively at night. I love when horror filmmakers create eeriness in broad daylight, and I think it really is a very effective tool in rituals. If I have a problem with the film, it's that the characters are a bit obnoxious. They're unlikable and cocky, and they bicker constantly. And particularly one character, Mitzi, played by Lawrence Dane, who's a wonderful actor. And, he is great in this, but he becomes a bit annoying, especially towards the end, in my opinion, as he gets more shrill and whiny the longer the film goes on. So it's a nice change of pace to have the older characters in a slasher, but it's a shame that there's such a motley crew of utter twats. But I assume that was deliberate on the filmmaker's part.
Yeah, I would take your word. I would agree with you there. I think they're meant to be kind of cantankerous and kind of stuck in their morals and ethics, and they use that as arguments against one another. Yeah. Whereas in these more recent films, these characters are just assholes just to be assholes. Yeah. I think these people have a lifetime of
I do. I think
this type of
I think the point is that they're sort of rich and they're doctors, so they have this kind of superior complex. Yeah. I mean, Ken James as Abel is the one sort of semi-likable character. I mean, Hal Holbrook is, I suppose, as the final girl, so to speak, is somebody to root for. Although he's very distant, I find, in the film. And again, the gay alcoholic character, which you only find out, I think it's about 35 minutes, he says that, he hasn't had a boyfriend in 5 years or something, and it's a very throwaway comment, and that's all we hear about his sexuality in the film, which I thought was a very progressive thing for a 1976 movie. But the film is hugely entertaining, and it has loads, as you said, in common with Deliverance and with the later Just Before Dawn. Now, of the two, I mean, I'd need to watch them back to back, but I think I prefer Just Before Dawn because it's more of a traditional slasher film and has more traditional slasher characters in it that are more likable, even if they don't have the depth of the characters in Rituals. But I mean, in terms of atmosphere and suspense, it gets a big thumbs up from me. And even if the characters are unlikable, the fact that most of them die in the end gives some kind of satisfaction. Even though it's not a very special effects heavy film, you don't see the gory demises like you do in sort of later slasher films. So don't go expecting gore. But for a good sort of backwoods slasher movie, it's certainly up in the top echelons.
Mm-hmm. I like what Justin had said, that the terrain itself is one of their biggest threats, and I like that the killer is sort of I guess he'd be a middleman. He's basically setting up the wilderness to kind of pick these people off. I think that's it's a very good choice.
And again, I was listening to the commentary with Lawrence Dane as well, and he said, he points out that the killer is specifically targeting these people. It's like he's obviously encountered loads of people in the woods over the years, but has done no harm to them. But he's specifically after these guys because they're doctors, and he's overheard. He's overheard
is a surgical mistake from in the war,
and he's overheard their conversations about how cocky they are and how nonchalant they are towards their patients. So that's why he has targeted them, which I think is an interesting touch. It's not just like Jason Voorhees killing anyone who comes into his vicinity.
Right. Nathan.
Rituals was an interesting one for me because when I first watched it a long time ago, I didn't really like it, but I watched it again, a long while back, and then we watched most of it at Grant's one Friday night, and I really, really like it now. I think I pretty much agree with what everybody else has already said. And one thing I love is I love the fact that it kind of puts you in the place of the characters because you don't really know what's after them either.
You can't say they're in their shoes, though.
No, you can't say that. That's why I avoided that one.
Good one.
I avoided that for that reason.
Yeah.
But you just you don't know what's after them either. And I think that builds suspense nicely when you're not exactly sure what's out there. They just wake up and there's like the deer head, on the spikes, and then it comes into play later on again when one of the characters, the surviving friends, finds his head on one of the spikes,
which is a great reveal, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the moments, because I really like the music they use for those bits, and I don't know if anyone else picked up on it, but I think it's almost identical music to the that used in The House with the Laughing Windows. It's got that same feel to it, that kind of real, which is made the same year, coincidentally, but it's got that kind of, that little bit of music they use when they do things, when something spooky's happening, I think is really, really effective, and it kind of really gives everything a real everything almost goes slightly off kind of pieced almost, everything's slightly unhinged, and they don't overuse it, but I think it's really, really effective.
I agree. I think there's a lot of effective scenes in this movie, I think. And I particularly love the finale. I think they did a great job in the finale and the reveal of the killer. And, even the ending, when he just goes and sits in the road. I mean, what exactly do you do after you've survived all of that?
It's kind of fitting because, I think Erik said that he's kind of vacant.
Yes.
Basically, he's out there by himself. He's all vacant, and he's just kind of staring out into nothing after going through this whole ordeal. Going back to the characters again, talking about their likability or lack thereof, I kind of like that, they're basically, getting what's coming to them because, like Erik said, they are cocky and they're kind of, fussy, and, they have this superiority to themselves. So this killer is picking them off for that reason, whereas, say, anyone else who's an asshole is just dying. I like that there's some kind of underlying theme as to why they're dying here. I think that's a very nice touch.
It's interesting, isn't it, the way that it's throughout the movie, the beginning of the movie, if you watched it, because Lawrence Dane's character starts to say it's almost as if he identifies that someone's targeting them, and he thinks it may be because of what one of them have done. He doesn't really realise. But then there's the whole thing with at the beginning, isn't there, about the Indian the mysticism of that area.
The cauldron of the moon, they called it, yeah.
Yeah, because, why do they... I just throwing this out there, I don't really know why it's called Rituals.
Well, I think Rituals is to imply maybe they they have like the trailer said, they have a ritual of vacationing.
I picked up on that in the trailer as well. Yeah.
Although that trailer is very anti rituals. It's kind of upbeat and happy, and sounds like it belongs in a different type of film. This movie's kind of a slow burn and very dark.
I love the trailer. I actually think that it's a great example of using a children's song for such a dark film. Like they're just so like anti each other that it works for me.
It probably used a slightly better effect than Don't Go Into the Woods Alone.
Yes.
I like what Erik said also, that this place is just kind of supernatural and otherworldly. And there's one character at the beginning who says that, it's the cauldron of the moon, and basically the Indians believed a long time ago that the moon bumped into the earth and created this, this vast, kind of hole in the earth, and it's this vast wasteland, and it's like they enter that and they're basically in another world. It kind of gives that, it has that feel to it.
Which is why it reminded me of Picnic at Hanging Rock, which is a film that is not supernatural, that has a supernatural feel. Yeah, if you know what I mean.
It's such an amazing movie.
Very much so. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, anything else before we get on to background, or?
Can I just ask, at the start of the movie, the guys are in a bar discussing some kind of project they're working on. It's penis enlargement, is it?
I think it has something to do with heart transplants, but you may be onto something.
Why, are you interested, Erik?
No, I don't need it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's too big as it is. I need a reduction, if anything.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
We need some proof of
maybe
that.
the killer can give you a reduction.
Well, if you want proof, I'll send you an email.
No, it's
and
okay.
then you'll be sorry.
Yes, I expect we probably.
I do just want to say that I mentioned this in my little opening diatribe, but I do like the Code Red DVD. I'm glad that we actually finally get to see what the killer looks like, because I had always seen the old Embassy VHS, and you never really got a good look at the killer. And I think the makeup effects on the killer here is really well done when you can actually see it.
And actually, the scene where Hal Holbrook cauterizes his wound using gunpowder.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I watched another film I watched this week. All I did this week was watch movies. Was Rambo 3. And he does the exact same thing in the film. He pushes gunpowder into his wound and sets it alight. And I was like, hey, he's robbed that from Rituals.
Yeah, in Rambo, he just kind of shrugs it off. And I like in Rituals that it's basically, he just starts screaming because it really would fucking hurt.
Sly, he does scream a bit, but then he gets his machine gun and goes off and kills some more foreigners.
Yeah.
So everything's okay in the world.
Yeah. Well, Sly can get away with it.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else? I mean, maybe we'll have some more to talk about after we've gone through some backgrounds. Joseph, did you find much on the film?
I found a few things. It's also known as The Creeper in some circles. I believe it had an estimated budget of 660,000 Canadian dollars, and it was shot in Canada. I want to say Toronto. I could be wrong.
Ontario.
Thank
near
you.
Lake Superior, and a place called Sault Ste. Marie.
Sorry, I know a lot of our Canadian listeners are going to hate us once more because I'm terrible with geography, but... the killer was played by the second assistant director, Michael Zenon. And the film was shot in 1976, but wasn't released until 77 or 78, though most sources I've seen have been 77. The film's wilderness setting, The Cauldron of the Moon, was shot in a stretch of, Ontario wilderness that had been burnt out by a forest fire 5 years earlier. Plenty of the charred trees left from the fire can be seen in the film, obviously. The movie was actually shot in continuity with the script, so in order. I know a lot of movies, shoot, say the ending first and then the middle portion next, blah, 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 blah. In the original script, they left the killer's identity unknown, so I believe there was no backstory as to why he's killing these people. But I think it's a good idea that they actually kind of gave him some backstory, because it kind of ties in with the characters here. And finally, and this might upset Justin a little bit, the severed deer's head was actually a real severed deer's head. That's kind of a shame.
Well, what Lawrence Dane says in the commentary track is that the local hunters had killed a deer, so they took the deer off the hunters. But you wonder, how made up is that? Did they just kill a deer for the sake of it, just to make special effects?
Right. But that's all I have. Anyone else have anything?
I have something.
Okay, go ahead.
The original idea was for the five guys to be dropped off into the wilderness by train, because apparently there was a train station somewhere nearby, and it was supposed to be picturesque in that. But they thought it would add to the sense of isolation if they had to be dropped into the middle of nowhere by airplane instead. Aquarius released this. If you watch the Code Red thing, you'll see their logo at the top of the film. And they put out the movie in 1977, and they were renowned for distributing lurid horror films from around the world. For instance, in the early 80s, they distributed the likes of a film we've covered, The Final Terror, a film we'll probably cover at some stage, Silent Night, Deadly Night. But they also did, The Beyond, Cannibal Ferox, Blue Holocaust, the Joe D'Amato movie, and Faces of Death. So they kind of specialised in putting out horror stuff, and they also specialised earlier in their career in porn, including the infamous Deep Throat and Sean Cunningham's first feature film called Together, which apparently is wall-to-wall vages and boobies. The budget, as I said, was $600,000. The director, Peter Carter, was born in England, but he died quite young, at the age of 49 in 1982 of a heart attack. He went on to make a film, the Alien on an oil rig film, The Intruder Within, which I think was made for TV. I have seen it, but I can't remember much about it. But his final film was a year later called High Point, which he co-wrote with Ian Sutherland, who was the writer in Rituals, which also starred Robin Gamble, who plays Marty in Rituals. Okay, and the again, a lot of this information I'm getting from the wonderful book They Came From Within, which is a detailed study of Canadian exploitation movies throughout history up until about 2003, 2004. They say that the sign of the snake entwined on the stick beside the deer's head is, they say they recognize the sign, and I had to Google this, and I'm sad to say, but it's a symbol of medicine. It's the rod of Asclepius, which is the Greek god of medicine, and is a sign used for medicine to this day. The film premiered in July of 1977 on the 31st in Canada. It got good critical notices, but when it was released in the US as The Creeper, Siskel and Ebert gave it dog week. Sorry?
No, you're good. You just had a little.
I thought. They gave it Dog of the Week, which I'm assuming is not a good thing.
No, it's not. I'm ashamed. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, now they're dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was pre-Friday the 13th and the slasher boom, so God knows, they probably would have gone back and realised that Rituals was a masterpiece in comparison. They would, I wouldn't. The cabin interiors for the film were filmed in Kleinberg Studios, and according to They Came From Within, Hal Holbrook was so exhausted from the rigorous location shooting that when he walked on the set for the cabin interiors, he just got into bed and fell asleep, apparently. Robin Gamble and Gary Reinecke, who play the brothers in this film, DJ and Marty, they went on to co-star in Bells. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's a wonderfully ridiculous film about a guy, a maniac who sends these weird pulses down a phone that if you pick up the phone, it makes your head explode. Have you seen it?
I have seen it, yeah.
I have not seen that. It sounds good.
It's also known as Murder by Phone, which does exactly what it says on the tin. You pick up the phone and there's some kind of pulse at the other end. And it makes you sort of shake violently, and your eyes begin to bleed. And
I don't remember it. I know I've seen it. I just don't remember that.
Yeah. It's a wonderfully ridiculous film, so I urge people to seek it out. The makeup effects were done by Carl Fullerton, who went on famously to work on Friday the 13th Part 2. And I think I said when we covered that film on the episode that had we seen an uncut version of Part 2, I think we would have seen that Carl Fullerton was more accomplished than Tom Savini. I wait to sort of justify that comment. Someday, hopefully, we'll see the uncut Part 2. These days, I was looking up, because you don't hear about him these days. He is now sort of the dedicated makeup person for Denzel Washington. He seems to work with Denzel Washington on every movie he does. Rick Baker apparently was supposed to originally do the effects, but by the time it came to shooting, he was tied up with some other film. Probably, was he working on King Kong 1976 at the time?
That would sound about right.
Yeah, it could have possibly been that. I think that's all I have. Apart from the fact that Lawrence Dane says on an interview on the Code Red disc that there was no cheating in the film. Like, they really did carry the body of Marty around on a stretcher. There was no sort of foam rubber dummy to make it easier for them. and the scenes where they're crossing the river and they fall in were completely improvised. Nobody had sort of checked the depth of the river beforehand. So when you see them falling in, that's actually their real reactions. So again, typical low budget filmmaking, I suppose. And apparently, again, they mentioned this on the commentary track. The very last shot of Hal Holbrook sitting in the middle of the road was used for an album he released. Now, I can't find any information about that on Google. I've tried searching for images of this album, but I can't find anything. I don't know if anyone else did or...
No.
Yeah, because apparently he released some... He was a vocal superstar. He was an RCA hot property, apparently.
And don't forget, he was also in Girls' Night Out, which we have covered.
Yes, of course, and famously in Creepshow and The Fog as well.
Yes.
A couple of my favorite movies.
I actually almost met Hal Holbrook. He came to Chattanooga for a stage production of I want to say Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn or something like that.
Yes,
I was going to go see it just to meet him to see if he'd talk about Girls' Night Out or Rituals, but I didn't get to go.
Yeah, because the only album I could find of Hal Holbrook's was him doing monologues from the play, Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer, whatever it's called. So that would make sense, yeah. He's still alive and he's still acting, and he's 88, 87, 88, I think.
Yeah, he's also one of those actors who never really seems to age. He's always seems to be the same age. Even today, he still pretty much looks the same.
Like Ralph Macchio.
Yeah, he keeps his age.
Okay, that's all I have, I think.
Okay.
Sorry. Although Lawrence Dane keeps mentioning on the commentary over and over again that the investors in the film were interested more in it being a tax write-off than in being a film that they were sort of eager to distribute and get released around the world. So
kind of a shame because it actually turned out to be a really well done film.
I know.
That was very much the whole Canadian tax shelter boom, wasn't it? Which went through the 70s and early 80s. And that they came from within. Was it Callum Natzel? I can't pronounce his name, unfortunately, but very good book, isn't it?
Excellent book. Book. Oh,
I heard a cat.
I heard a cat.
That was Stripes. She has not made an appearance in a while, has she?
Nathan, do you have any background info?
No, and Stripes doesn't either.
Okay. Justin.
Well, Erik has said most of what I was going to say, which is fine, but there's not actually that much information about this movie. A couple of things that you didn't mention, Erik, was that when you said Siskel and Ebert said it was Dog of the Week, which they did, apparently the film gained some recognition because Stephen King championed it for a while, apparently. So when the film was released, Variety basically said that it kind of lacked excitement, and they kind of most people dismissed it as a kind of a Deliverance clone, which I think is to be expected. I think but it was re-released. It was kind of released. I think it was released in Canada in '77 as Rituals, and when it came to the States in '78, it was The Creeper. And it got re-released throughout the years. And it was re-released in 1983 on a double bill with a film called Teen Lust, which was a 1978 teen sex comedy, which seems very bizarre, but that's what Variety says. And a couple of other little bits. The screenwriter Ian Sutherland went to meet veterans from World War II, and there was a group in Canada who'd been captured, I think, in Hong Kong, one of the earliest prisoners of war, the Japanese, and they had all sorts of horrible things done to them, and he a lot of what they told him kind of informed what he did with the film, so that was interesting. And the last thing I've got was that at the end of the film, we haven't spoken about it, but there's a section in the cabin where Hal Holbrook gets attacked by somebody, and he chops them with an axe, and it actually turns out not to be the killer, but the killer's brother, who is blind. And the killer's brother basically says he tried to stop the killer carrying on, but he wasn't able to. But the person who played the killer's brother also played Brian Oblivion in Videodrome. So that is everything I think I've got that we haven't already said.
Can I just say that I was just looking up that film Teen Lust on IMDb. The lead actress in that is Kristen Baker, who was Terry in Friday the 13th Part 2.
Oh, really?
So there's the slasher connection for the double bill. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, he doesn't talk about, surprisingly, and they don't mention it on the commentary, do they? Do they? I didn't get to the very end of the commentary because I ran out of time, but it doesn't mention "Happy Birthday to Me," which is obviously what Lawrence Dane played Virginia's dad, didn't he, in the film?
Yeah, no, it doesn't mention it at all. I listened to the whole commentary as well and didn't listen. They didn't mention.
Which I'm surprised. I'm surprised that he doesn't mention it. I mean, "Happy Birthday to Me" is kind of wonderfully schlocky, whereas Lawrence Dane, as lovely as he is, he talks about Rituals being an actor's movie. They're actors, so they took it very seriously, and obviously it comes across. But there's still a kind of a certain sense of snobbery, I kind of guess.
I got that vibe from the commentary as well. So.
So
that this is not a horror movie, and I imagine if he was approached to discuss "Happy Birthday to Me," he wouldn't be too enthusiastic.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. So, do we have anything else to say about Rituals, or? I
think we've covered the terrain.
We have, yes.
Very good, very clever.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah.
As long as don't let Erik do his special clapping. Let's move on.
What I want to know is, I always think when the character of Lawrence Dane's character is called Mitzi, which I think sounds like a dog Paris Hilton might own.
Yeah, which is funny. It must be a kind of 70s kind of nickname.
It must be like it must be for like
Mitchell or Mitch.
Yeah, Mitzi. Yeah, but it definitely sounds female. I think.
Yeah. No, it's
he
funny.
does whine a lot, so
he does.
I mean, the ending when you see the killer. It kind of reminds me.
It's going to alienate our women viewership, listenership. Sorry.
Yeah.
All four of you.
Yeah.
Hopefully, there's more out there. So, but yeah, it reminded me a little bit of the killer at the end. Seemed to be. I think it might be mentioned in "They Came from Within," but it's very reminiscent of the cannibalistic hobos in Deathline.
Yeah, they do mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, But yeah, well, I think that's Rituals. Do we? We can move on to feedback, but I'm not sure if we've got any. Have we got any, Joseph?
I don't.
I have nothing.
No, we have nothing.
No.
So we
are recording this early, so I'm assuming that's why.
Yeah. I have one. It says, "Dear Erik, I think you're the sexiest person ever," and that comes with lots of love from.
Love Erik.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
all I have.
Your housemate.
No.
She Soapy Steve.
She doesn't think that. Yeah, Soapy Steve said it.
Okay. Right. Well, let's play the contact details so you can contact us. Contact us even. So please do write in, because we had a big glut, didn't we? We had loads last time, which is fantastic, and then we've had it hit another drought. So make us soaking wet with feedback.
Be sure to search for and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at THC_podcast. Our voicemail is 858-233-9281. And you can email us directly at the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com.
Yes, so please do write in. We did have some feedback on the forums, didn't we? But that was mostly about chocolate.
Yeah, that was about the differences in chocolate between, American and overseas.
Yeah. So if you want to check out that thread, then it's on the Body Count Continues forums.
And if you want to check out the interesting array of spectacular action stills or lobby cards for Friday the 13th, Part 3 and 4, look up Hysteria Lives on Facebook, because you've been posting some, Justin, recently.
I have, yes. I just bought a whole load of them, and I'm just saying it's slightly bizarre. I think we said off air that they don't have any images of Jason on them.
They do have a lovely image of Rob and Tommy standing beside a car bonnet, though, which is really exciting.
I know. Yeah. And that lovely red blouse as well, which I can't remember the name the actress in Part 4 is wearing when she's chatting to Peter Barton.
Yeah. Lovely red blouse, lovely. Yeah.
Yes, but I'll be posting more of the exciting images, because I got those images of Night School as well, which I'll be putting up, which are incredibly gory. Some of them, and
especially that throat slitting. I don't remember it being that gory in the film.
No. So, and there's some really. I've put some more. There's loads of Rachel Ward looking gormless. But then,
No.
yes, surprisingly, yes. But yeah, it just really surprises me that they didn't really push Jason in those films. It's almost as if they I don't know. I mean, why would they do that? It's kind of.
I don't know. He was established as the killer in Friday the 13th by part 3, definitely.
Yeah,
so I don't know why they wouldn't include him.
I mean, maybe they were trying to keep the hockey mask hidden as a secret, but by part
But why
4,
would you have a picture of Fox holding a wallet to sell the movie? Surely a picture of Dana Kimmel holding the axe would be a better way of selling the film, surely.
Yeah. I can't imagine the Nightmare on Elm Street films didn't have Freddy plastered all over them. So anyway, yes, I'll be posting some of those and various other bits and pieces that I picked up recently. So do check them out. And also, when this goes out, how long will we have until the closing date for the Night Before Easter Kickstarter?
Well, the closing date is in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and say we're probably not going to make the goal. We're a little over $6,000. So if you want to pledge and you haven't, you still have time. But if we don't make it, we're going to kind of regroup and just kind of maybe tighten up our budget a little bit and see what we can do. But there's still time. So go to Kickstarter.com and search for The Night Before Easter. And we are on Facebook, and we post a lot on there as well. So,
yeah, no, definitely get behind Nathan and Joseph. Well, not in that way, but
oh yeah.
So, and what do we? Well, we're probably we're gonna release this, and then we're going to be having a slightly longer.
I think we'll be off for about 3 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, it'll be about 3 weeks instead of 2. So
yes, but we're going to come back with a very special show, aren't we? Who wants to?
Yes, it's going to be a good one.
Yes. Well, we're hoping to be joined. Can I say who we're hoping to be joined by?
Yeah, go
Dana
ahead.
Kimmel.
By Michael from Cinema Jumeep. And we're going to be discussing Friday the 13th Part 3, one of the biggies.
Yes. So
we will be releasing that on Friday the 13th in September.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully.
Will we?
Well, either that or the 15th, which is 2 days, which is on a Sunday.
Hold on. Are we not releasing something at the end of August?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Are we?
Well, it's all very confusing. Yeah.
The mystery
we'll have to regroup.
We can work it out.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Okay. So this might be like the end of The Spy Who Loved Me, where it says James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only, but it turned out to be Moonraker.
Oh, really? I didn't know that, but...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, this there may be a different film, but we will be covering Friday the 13th Part 3 shortly. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, we'll convene after this, and we'll get our professional show back on the road. But thank you for listening, and enjoy the sunshine wherever you are. And we'll play you out. What are you going to play out with?
Oh, this is just the incidental credit music. And I do want to say to everyone before we leave, hold on to your shoes. Do not let them be taken from you.
Exactly. Yes. Rule number one. But and okay, well, we'll play out with that. And thank you for joining us. And we will see you next time on the Hysteria Continues. So goodbye.
Bye.
Is this your rubber? La-di-da-di-da.
So, Erik, you're looking well.
Do you come here often?
Mm-hmm.
Settle down in there.
He must be talking to my butt because my hand ain't listening. I'm looking at my penis right now.
I almost did this episode naked, but it was kind of too cold in here, so I had to throw on clothes.
Yeah.
Who's there?
I'm back.
Yeah, I heard you.
What? That wasn't me.
Yes, that wasn't you.
It wasn't me.
Then you know that I heard something.
I'm just... What did you hear? The creaky door, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was you whispering.
No, but
you were trying to copy the girl from Wacko, I think, when she says, you're all going to die tonight.
No, I was just trying... No, I mean, there There was a girl killed in this apartment I live in 10 years ago today.
Do you have like a creepy little girl that lives across the hall that's very rude to you?
Yes. So that's probably what it was, Nathan. You heard the ghost too.
Oh, that's got to be it.
Yeah. Wow.
How do we know she is alive?
What do you think? She floated out of that pool? Or maybe she got sucked down the drain?